Lydia Moore.
The first time I heard the trees whisper, I thought it was just the wind. But the wind doesn't know your name. I was 13, walking the trail behind my grandparents' cabin. The sun had gone down faster than I expected, and shadows ran ahead of me. That's when the pines began to murmur, soft at first, like dry leaves brushing together, then clearer. Words. Stay. Daniel! I froze, heart pounding. Nobody had called me that name in years. Only my mother used it, and she'd been dead 2 winters by then. The branches swayed, though the air was still. And in the silence between the whispers, I swear I heard it. A long inhale, a slow exhale. The woods were breathing. I never went back to those trails for years. Not until last autumn, when my father called me home. The cabin sat where it always had, at the edge of Bell's Hollow. Age had chewed its roof and moss gnawed at its porch, but it still leaned stubbornly against the woods like it belonged to them. "You'll stay a while?" my father asked that night over stew. His eyes were hollow, rimmed in red. "I can't keep this place alone." I nodded, though unease curled in my stomach. Every window of the cabin faced trees, and every time I glanced at them I swore they leaned closer than before. At midnight I lay awake listening. No crickets, no owls, just silence pressing heavy against the walls. Then, faint, almost swallowed, "Daniel." I sat up, my chest seized. The voice came from the tree line, low and broken, like someone calling from under soil. I told myself it was a dream. But in the morning, footprints circled the cabin. Bare feet, small, child-sized, days bled together. My father grew restless, staring out the windows for hours. "They're watching again," he muttered once. "Who?" I asked. "The trees." I laughed, but he didn't. That evening, while chopping wood, I found something half buried by the stump. A notebook. Mold chewed its edges, but inside every page was filled with the same words scrawled over and over in frantic, uneven strokes. I shoved it back into the dirt. But that night, I dreamed of the woods leaning over me, their branches like fingers pressing into my skin. 2 nights later, I woke to the front door creaking open. My father was gone from his bed. I grabbed a flashlight, heart hammering, and followed his tracks into the trees. "Dad." My voice cracked. No answer. Just whispers threading between the trunks. Dozens of voices, soft, overlapping. Children, women, men, and then, clear among them, my mother's voice. "Daniel. Come home." The light flickered. Shapes stirred in the dark. Figures stepped between trees, tall, thin, their skin stretched smooth where faces should have been. I stumbled back. My beam caught my father standing between them, slack-eyed, lips moving. "Do you hear it?" he whispered. "They're so lonely." One faceless thing leaned close to him, its head tilting. The skin across its face rippled like something underneath was pushing through. "Dad, come back." He turned. For a heartbeat, his face was gone too. Blank, pale skin where his mouth and eyes should be. Then the light sputtered and his features snapped back. I dragged him away, both of us stumbling back to the cabin. He didn't fight. He just kept whispering. They only want to be heard. The next evening I found him gone again. The door stood wide, the trees groaning like they'd bent closer. I followed the sound. Not footsteps this time, but whispers leading me deeper. The trail opened into a clearing I'd never seen before. In the center stood a cabin, smaller than ours. Crooked, its windows glowed with warm light. Smoke curled from the chimney. And inside I saw her, my mother. She sat at the table, ladling stew into 2 bowls. Her head lifted. She smiled. "Daniel," she said gently, "come in. Bring your father." My father stepped forward, eyes shining. "She's waiting." I grabbed his arm. "It's not her." Her face pressed against the window suddenly. Too close, too stretched. Eyes wide, mouth gaping, not in a smile, but a scream. "Don't," she mouthed, banging against the glass. The door creaked open on its own. Warm light spilled across the clearing. And all around us, the faceless shapes gathered, whispering, reaching with long, pale arms. My father tore free of me and stumbled toward the door. "Dad, no!" He turned once, his features flickering like a dying flame, then vanished into the light. The cabin door slammed. The glow died. When I rushed forward, there was nothing. No cabin, no door. Just trees. I searched until dawn, but my father never came back. The rangers said I was delirious. Said maybe he wandered too far and got lost. But I know the truth. The woods took him. Now nights in the cabin are unbearable. The trees press close, whispering. Sometimes they sound like him, sometimes her. Sometimes dozens of voices all at once begging me to open the door, to listen, to come inside. I don't answer. But I don't sleep either, because every time my eyes close, I dream of that clearing. The cabin waiting, light spilling from its windows. And each night, the voice grows sharper, louder. Daniel, come home. The trail wasn't supposed to be there. I'd been hiking Bell's Ridge for years, and I knew every marker, every bend in the switchbacks. But that day, a new sign stood where there hadn't been one before. It was nailed crooked to a pine trunk. Faded paint, one word carved in jagged strokes. Hollow. The arrow pointed into a narrow break in the trees where no path should have been. I told myself not to care, not to follow. But something in me itched, tugged, and against my better sense, I stepped through. The forest closed around me, and the moment I looked back, the ridge was gone. The hollow path wasn't like any trail I'd walked before. For one thing, it was too quiet. The woods held their breath. No birds, no insects. Even my own footfalls seemed smothered. The ground dipped soft under me, carpeted in pine needles. The trunks leaned closer than they should, and though the canopy was thick, the air had a brightness to it, as if the light came from nowhere at all. I told myself I'd only walk 100 feet in, then turn back, just to prove it was nothing. But after 100 feet, the path bent right. Then again, and again. The bends led me in a slow spiral until I stepped into a clearing I knew well. The overlook where Bell's Ridge Trail should have ended. Except, it was wrong. The benches were there, the rock outcrop, even the trail marker. But the sign still read hollow, and behind it, the same crooked path I'd just come down. I had walked in a circle. I tried again. This time I walked faster, counting my steps, scratching bark marks into trees as I passed. After 10 minutes, the path bent left, then right, then spilled me out into the same clearing. The bark marks I'd carved were gone. I laughed nervously. Okay, cute. The woods didn't laugh back. On the third attempt, I sprinted. My breath ragged, sweat clinging to my neck. I kept my eyes fixed forward, refusing to glance sideways. The spiral grew tighter, the air heavier, and then I stumbled onto the overlook again. But this time there were two of me. Across the clearing, another figure staggered out of the path. Same clothes, same backpack. He looked up and I stared into my own terrified face. "Hey!" I called. He flinched, eyes wide. His lips moved. He shouted something back, but the words were wrong. I couldn't hear them, just a soft rustling, like leaves brushing against each other. The other me bolted back into the trees. I didn't follow. I sat on the bench, trembling. Hours seemed to pass, though the light never shifted. The sky above the clearing stayed dim, like dusk stretched too thin. At last I forced myself to try again. This time the path bent tighter. The trees leaned harder. My chest clenched with every breath. And then, voices, faint, whispers threading between the trunks. Turn back. Don't look. Too late. I spun, flashlight beam trembling, but no one was there. Just trees. Then a hand gripped my shoulder. I screamed, wheeling around. It was me. Another me. Pale, hollow-eyed, lips cracked. He shook his head violently. Stop walking. My throat tightened. What is this? What's happening? You're feeding it. His voice was hoarse, broken. Every step you take, it grows stronger. Don't you see? It doesn't end. I stumbled back. This isn't real. You're not real. But his hand was cold and heavy on my arm. Real enough. Listen to me, he hissed. Don't. Something dragged him backward into the dark. His mouth tore open in a scream that made no sound at all. I was alone again. I ran. I didn't care which way. Didn't care if it circled again. I just ran until my lungs burned, tears blurring my vision. When I burst into the clearing, I collapsed onto the dirt, gasping, shaking, but it wasn't the overlook anymore. The benches were rotted stumps. The rock outcrop was gone, and in the center of the clearing stood a tall figure, a man shape, draped in bark and moss, its head crowned with twisted branches. Its face was a hollow knot in the wood, empty, dark. It raised a hand, long fingers splitting into roots, and pointed at me. The whispers rose around us, hundreds of voices pressing against my skull. Some I recognized, My father, my mother, my own. The figure stepped forward, and the ground groaned like wood bending under weight. I stumbled back. "Stay away!" Its voice was all of them at once. "You've already walked too far." The trees leaned in, creaking, closing. Roots writhed up from the soil, wrapping my ankles, my wrists. I thrashed, screaming. The figure's hollow face bent close. Inside the dark of it, something shifted. Another face pressed against the black. My own, mouth wide, screaming soundlessly. Then the dark swallowed me. I woke on the trailhead. The sun was bright. Birds chirped. My watch said I'd only been gone an hour. For a moment, I told myself it was a nightmare, a trick of exhaustion. But when I checked my phone, the photos stopped after one I didn't remember taking. A picture of the overlook. Me sitting on the bench, only my face was hollow. No eyes, no mouth, just smooth, pale skin. And when I looked at the trees behind the cabin that night, they leaned closer, listening, whispering, waiting for me to walk again. The first time we saw the lantern, we thought it meant safety. We were 4 friends, lost in the woods after sundown. The trail markers had vanished. The map was useless, and every direction looked the same. Our phones had no signal. Then, between the pines, a warm yellow glow bobbed softly. Finally, Mark muttered, relief breaking through his teeth. "Somebody's out here." But the glow didn't flicker like a flashlight. It burned steady, swinging gently, like an old oil lantern. No one carried lanterns anymore, and yet it swayed just beyond the trees, waiting. We hadn't meant to stay that late. What was supposed to be a 2-hour hike stretched into 5, then 7. Mark insisted he knew a shortcut back to the main road, but the shortcut spat us deeper into the woods, where the trees crowded so tight the sky disappeared. By the time we realized we were lost, the sun had gone down. "We'll camp here," Jenna said, trying to sound calm. Her voice shook anyway. "No tent, no bags, nothing," I muttered. "We were supposed to be home hours ago." Silence pressed against us. Even the air felt wrong. Heavy, too still. Then the light appeared. It bobbed about 50 feet away. Steady, golden. "See?" Mark grinned. "Probably a ranger or some hunter. We're saved." "No one hunts with lanterns," I said, throat dry. He ignored me and stepped toward it. The light swayed once, almost like it had nodded. We followed. The lantern never moved too far ahead, always keeping the same distance. It glowed bright enough to show a path through the underbrush, though no real trail existed. "Hey," Jenna called. "We're lost." "Can you help us?" No answer. Just the light, bobbing gently. "Maybe they didn't hear," Mark said. "They're right there," I snapped. We kept walking. The deeper we went, the quieter it grew. Our footfalls dulled. The forest held its breath. "Something's wrong," I whispered. But no one listened. After an hour, we reached a clearing. In the center stood a figure holding the lantern. He was tall, thin. His coat hung ragged like old burlap, swaying though there was no wind. His face was lost in shadow, though the lantern's glow should have lit it. "Sir?" Jenna asked carefully. "We're trying to find the ridge road." "Can you—" The figure lifted the lantern higher. Light spilled across the clearing. Behind him, shapes stirred. Dozens of them. Figures crouched in the dark, each with blank, pale skin where faces should have been. Mark swore under his breath. The figure's voice came low. Gravel pressed through wood. "Keep the light." The faceless shapes shifted closer, whispering without mouths. "What the hell does that mean?" I whispered. The man, if it was a man, tilted the lantern. The glow flared, bright enough to blind. When my eyes cleared, he stood inches from us. Too close. His face wasn't shadow anymore, it was hollow. Skin stretched smooth where eyes and mouth should be. Still, his voice rasped through the dark. Every flame must feed. He shoved the lantern into Mark's hands. Mark staggered back, clutching it. "I don't want this!" But the handle burned against his skin, fusing to his grip. He screamed, shaking, but couldn't let go. The faceless things leaned forward. Their whispers surged like leaves in a storm. Jenna grabbed my arm. "We have to run." Mark dropped to his knees, the lantern blazing brighter. His scream twisted into something else, a shriek not entirely his own. His face stretched, skin bubbling like wax, then smooth, blank. His body crumpled. The lantern stood upright beside him, flame steady. The keeper stepped back, empty hand lowering. The light is kept. We bolted. Jenna yanked me toward the trees, our feet pounding the dirt. The whispers swelled behind us, chasing through branches. Don't look. Don't look, but I looked anyway. Mark was walking beside the keeper now. His skin was blank, pale. But in the hollow where his face should have been, I swore I saw something pushing to get out. His real face. Trapped inside, screaming silently. The lantern swayed between them, guiding. We ran until our lungs tore, until the trees broke and the ridge road shimmered in moonlight. We collapsed on the asphalt, gasping. When we dared to look back, the forest was still, silent, empty, except for a faint yellow glow, bobbing gently between the trunks. The rangers found us at dawn. They never found Mark. Your friend probably got lost, one said flatly. Happens out here, but we knew better. Jenna doesn't talk anymore. Won't go near woods, me? I can't sleep, because when the house is quiet and the night presses against my windows, I see it. That same lantern glow, bobbing at the edge of the trees, waiting, because every flame must feed. They said the creek swallowed him whole. One moment, the boy was splashing in the water, laughing. The next, silence. His friends ran home screaming, but when the parents came back, the creek was still, black as glass. No body, no bubbles, no sound at all. Since then, people say if you stand by that creek at night, you can hear him calling, not screaming. Not crying, just whispering your name. When my parents bought the old house by the water, I thought they were crazy. It's quiet here, Dad said, unloading boxes. Fresh air. No traffic, no neighbors screaming at each other. Too quiet, I muttered. The house leaned crooked, its windows fogged with years of neglect. The backyard sloped down into the woods where the creek carved a thin black scar through the earth. I didn't like how it looked. The water didn't move right. It should have been rushing, gurgling over rocks. But the creek was still, glassy, a mirror that showed nothing but trees bending over it. That first night, I woke to tapping on my window. Not hard, not loud, just a soft drip, drip, drip. I pulled the curtains. The creek shone in moonlight, and across it, I saw a boy standing ankle-deep in water. His clothes sagged, soaked. His face was pale. When he opened his mouth, no sound came, but in my head, I heard it clear. Come closer. The next morning, I told Mom what I saw. She laughed. Dreams. New house, new bed, new noises. That's all. But I knew it wasn't a dream. That afternoon, I wandered to the creek again. The air around it felt heavy, too still. I picked up a rock and tossed it in. The splash was sharp, loud, but instead of rippling outward, the water just absorbed it. The surface smoothed over in seconds, and then I heard it. Why'd you throw that? The voice was inside my head again, soft, sad. I spun, scanning the woods. Empty. Who's there? I whispered. No answer. Just the creek, glimmering like glass. That night I heard the tapping again, louder, insistent. I pulled back the curtain. The boy was closer this time, standing not across the creek but in our yard, bare feet leaving no print in the dirt. His hair clung wet to his forehead, his lips didn't move, but his voice filled my skull. Come play. I stumbled back, heart slamming. From her room, my little sister whimpered in her sleep, and through the walls, I swore I heard her whisper back, okay. The next morning at breakfast, I asked her, you were talking in your sleep last night. She blinked, spoon halfway to her mouth. I wasn't asleep. Mom frowned. What are you two going on about? Nothing, I muttered, but my sister leaned close and whispered, giggling. He says he's lonely. I froze. Who? She smiled. The boy in the creek. I tried to warn Dad. He snapped. Enough. There's no boy. Stop filling her head with stories. But that night, the tapping came again. Louder, harder, like nails rapping glass. I didn't want to look, but my sister did. I caught her climbing onto the windowsill, eyes glassy, lips whispering words I couldn't hear. I yanked her down. Stop, he's not your friend, she screamed, thrashing in my arms. Let me go! He needs me! And outside, the creek gurgled for the first time, low, hungry. 2 nights later, I woke to silence, too much silence. Her bed was empty. I bolted outside barefoot. Cold mud swallowing my feet as I ran to the creek. Moonlight shivered across its glassy surface. And there she was, standing knee-deep in the black water, smiling at nothing. "Get out!" I screamed. She turned, eyes pale, lips moving with words not her own. From the water beside her, the boy rose. His face sagged, skin bloated. Water poured from his open mouth, but his voice rang clear in my head. "Every friend comes home." I waded in, grabbing her arm. The water felt thick, clinging like oil. She screamed, clawing at me. The boy's hand shot out, icy fingers clamping my wrist. My skin burned, bones aching beneath his grip. "You can't keep her." "I won't let you take her," I screamed back, his hollow eyes widened. For a moment, I swore his face shifted, back to a boy's, frightened, desperate. Then the creek surged. Water rose like arms, wrapping around my sister, pulling her under. Her scream cut off, swallowed whole. I dove after her, thrashing. Darkness filled my mouth, my lungs. Cold pressure dragged me deeper, and in the silence I heard her voice, faint, echoing inside my skull. "It's okay. He's not lonely anymore." I woke on the bank, coughing water, the dawn gray and empty. The creek was still again, smooth as glass. My sister was gone. The police searched for weeks. They called it an accident. Said she wandered in, drowned like the boy before. But I know the truth. The creek keeps what it takes. Now at night, I still hear the tapping. Always at my window, soft at first, then harder. And sometimes, I hear her voice. "Come closer." And I know if I answer, if I so much as whisper back, the water will open for me too, because the creek is never silent. It's just waiting. We found the cellar by accident. The ground had sagged in a hollow between the trees, where moss smothered rotting wood. At first we thought it was just debris, an old storm-fallen shack. But when we kicked away the leaves, a door yawned open, heavy planks iron-banded, sunk deep into the earth, a root cellar. "Out here in the middle of nowhere. That's not on the maps," Caleb muttered. No, it wasn't, and the way the air spilled up from it, damp, metallic, sour with rot, made my stomach knot. We should have left it buried, but we didn't. It was hunting season, and we'd been tracking a buck since morning. Me, Caleb, and Ryan. We weren't great hunters, more beer drinkers with rifles, but we liked the excuse to disappear into the woods. The day had gone poorly. No deer, just silence, thicker than usual. Even the birds had quit. By evening, we were cold, tired, half drunk, and looking for a spot to camp. That's when Ryan stumbled on the cellar door. "Jesus," he said, prying it open with his boot. The hinges groaned, coughing up dust. "What the hell's this doing here?" The opening gaped black. A wooden stairway sank into dirt. I expected it to reek of mildew. Instead, the smell was sharper, wet metal like blood left too long in the air. "Don't," I said. But Ryan grinned, pulling his flashlight. "Come on, you don't find something like this every day." Caleb looked uneasy. "Looks abandoned, dangerous." Ryan was already climbing down. "So's half the fun." The beam vanished into the dark, and after a beat, his voice floated back up. "Guys, you need to see this." We followed. The steps creaked, groaning under us until we reached packed dirt. The cellar was bigger than it had any right to be. Tunnels branched like veins, walls carved rough from earth, shored up with beams that sagged under their own age. Roots knotted through the ceiling. Long pale tendrils dangled down like hair. Ryan's flashlight darted around. "See, somebody built this. Could be old moonshiners, or, I don't know, something." The beam caught on the walls, not just dirt. Carvings, lines, spirals, shapes that meant nothing but twisted your stomach if you stared too long. Some looked burned in, some carved by fingernails, and between them, stains. Dark, soaked deep. "Not moonshiners," Caleb whispered. We went deeper. The roots thickened, curling tight around the beams, twisting into shapes almost like hands, almost like faces, and then we heard it, a sound. Low and hollow, breathing. "Please tell me that's one of you," I muttered. Ryan shook his head, beam trembling. "Nope." The sound deepened, echoing through the tunnels. Not one breath, many, in and out. A rhythm older than lungs. Caleb swallowed hard. We should go. But Ryan's light had caught something ahead. A door. Not wood, but roots tangled so thick they'd woven themselves into a wall. He laughed nervously. "Looks like it's guarding something." The roots shifted, I swear they did. Pulled tighter, then loosed. Like muscle flexing, Ryan stepped closer. Don't, I hissed. He turned, grinning like he didn't hear me. Maybe there's something behind. The roots split open, a gap tore down the middle, damp earth sloughing off. Darkness beyond, and from it a voice seeped, not through air. Through us. Come deeper. Ryan went first. Always did. The gap swallowed him. His light blinked, then vanished. Caleb cursed. Ryan, get back here! No answer, just the breathing. Louder now, we should have left. God, we should have. But Caleb pushed forward, muttering, I'm not leaving him. And I followed, because I couldn't stand the thought of being alone in that tunnel. The passage opened into a chamber. Wide, round, the ceiling tangled thick with roots. They dangled in sheets, pulsing faintly, slick with something that dripped slow as sap. In the center lay Ryan's flashlight, still on. Beam pointing upward, Ryan wasn't holding it. He was standing beneath the roots, arms limp at his sides, head tilted back. The roots had lowered into his mouth, into his eyes, burrowing. His chest rose and fell with the rhythm of the breathing, but it wasn't his. The roots swelled with every inhale, shrank with every exhale. Like the entire room was drawing breath through him, I gagged. Ryan! His voice came, but it wasn't his voice. The cellar must feed. Roots whipped out, lashing Caleb's arm. He screamed, tearing free, skin flaying. I grabbed him, dragging him back toward the tunnel. But the walls themselves shifted, roots tearing through dirt, blocking our way. Ryan, or what was left of him, staggered toward us. His face stretched, pale, lips pulled wide by something moving underneath. The chamber groaned with voices. Stay. Deeper. Feed. The roots surged. One wrapped Caleb's throat, yanking him from my grip. His scream cut off in a choke as he was pulled into the writhing ceiling. I ran. No light. No sense of direction. Just clawing through dirt as the tunnels closed behind me. The breathing followed. Always behind. Always closer until air. Night air. I burst out of the cellar door, collapsing into leaves. The hinges slammed shut behind me, roots crunching like bones. The woods were silent. Too silent. They never found Caleb or Ryan. When I led the sheriff to the spot, the cellar door was gone. No sagging ground, no hinges, just earth smoothed over with moss and roots. He thought I'd lost my mind, but I still hear it. At night, when the house is still, I hear the breath under the floorboards, slow, heavy, waiting. Sometimes the walls creak, wood groaning like it's being pushed from the inside. And sometimes, if I'm quiet enough, I hear their voices tangled in. Caleb, Ryan, calling my name. The cellar didn't disappear. It moved, and it's waiting to open again. For me, for you, for anyone who listens too long, because the cellar must feed. The tower was too tall for silence. Old wood, iron bolts, wind whistling through cracks. It should have creaked and groaned as I climbed. But every step echoed sharp, hollow, as if the hill itself was holding its breath. Halfway up, I paused. Below me, the trees swayed. Above me, the cabin at the top sat dark, windows blank like dead eyes. And then I heard it. Not the wind, not the forest. A voice, faint, curling through the stairwell. Come up. I'd been hiking alone for 2 days when I found the hill. The forest was endless, a sea of pines and black oaks. I'd come out here to clear my head, to get away from people, noise, everything. I didn't plan on finding anyone, least of all a watchtower. But there it was, a spindly structure of weathered beams and crossbars, thrusting above the trees like a finger pointing at the sky. Old fire towers used to dot these woods, but most had rotted or been torn down decades ago. This one still stood. The stairs spiraled up forever, dizzying in their repetition. My first thought was practical. Great vantage point. Maybe I can spot the trail I lost. But as I stared up, something cold slid into me. The tower didn't look abandoned. It looked patient. Still, I started climbing. Step after step, the forest shrank beneath me. The air grew thinner. And with every flight, I felt less like I was climbing up and more like I was being drawn in. Halfway up, I heard it, a whisper curling through the beams. Come up. I froze. Heart hammering. No one else was out here. No one could be, and yet, the voice waited. I told myself it was the wind. Kept climbing. The higher I went, the worse it felt. The forest below seemed to bend away from the hill. like even the trees didn't want to be near this place. Shadows deepened between them, though the sun still burned. Finally, I reached the top. The cabin was small, square, walls of glass and timber. Its door hung slightly open, hinges groaning as the breeze nudged it. I pushed it wider. Inside was a single chair facing the window. Empty, but the wood beneath it was worn, indented, as if someone had sat there for years without moving. The desk held old logbooks. I flipped one open. The pages weren't filled with weather notes or fire reports, just one sentence, written over and over in a frantic hand. He is watching. Every page. Same words, ink fading, handwriting shaking as the years went on. Then I heard the voice again, this time behind me. Sit. I spun. The cabin was empty, but the chair scraped an inch closer to me across the floor. No, I muttered. My voice cracked. The walls seemed tighter now. The windows darker. Not funny, I whispered. From below, the stairs groaned. Footsteps. Slow, heavy. Coming up, I rushed to the window. No one on the steps. Nothing in the trees, but the footsteps grew louder anyway, closer. The chair creaked, shifting to face me. The door slammed shut. I was trapped. The footsteps stopped right outside. Silence pressed against the wood. Then the handle turned. The door swung open, but no one stood there. Just the stairwell yawning black. I staggered back. My heel caught the chair leg, and something cold clamped my shoulders. Invisible hands shoved me down. I fell into the chair. My body froze. Muscles locked. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. But my eyes worked. And they wouldn't close. The window filled my vision. The forest stretched endless below, shifting strangely, like the trees leaned toward me. And in the glass reflection, I saw him, a man, gaunt, hollow-eyed, standing over me, one hand gripping the chair. His mouth moved, but the sound came from inside my head. Now you watch. I blinked, and he was gone. But I couldn't stand, couldn't turn my head, couldn't do anything but stare out at the forest. Minutes passed, hours. The sun slid down. Shadows crawled up the hill, and the longer I sat, the clearer things became. Between the trees, figures stood. Dozens. Pale. Still. Staring up at me. The forest was full of them. Watching. Waiting. I don't know how many days it's been. My body doesn't need food, doesn't need water. Only stillness. I can't look away. The logbook lies open beside me. I added my line this morning, the pen moving, though I didn't will it. He is watching. Soon I think I won't even know my own name. I'll just be the next hollow voice whispering up the stairs, calling some other fool into the chair. The tower is patient. The hill is patient, but the forest below is not. I see the pale figures moving closer every night. One day, when the chair takes someone new, I think they'll climb the tower. All of them, and I'll be among them, waiting, watching. Because on Watcher's Hill, nobody leaves. The first bone was small, a rabbit skull, sun-bleached, resting in the dirt. Nothing strange about that. Plenty of animals die in the woods, but then we saw another. A deer femur, half-buried. Then another. A rib cage splayed open like a map. Within minutes, we realized the bones weren't scattered. They were arranged. A line. A trail, leading deeper into the trees. Someone made this, Caleb whispered, but the bones weren't old. Some were fresh, still clinging with tendon, and the trail didn't end. We were 3 hunters out for deer season. Me, Caleb, and Mason. The morning had been empty. The woods too quiet, no tracks, no scat, no birdsong. By midday, we'd started joking that the animals had all packed up and left. Then Mason found the skull. Creepy, huh? He dangled it by the teeth, laughing. I told him to drop it. But when we noticed the next bone and the next, our laughter died. The trail stretched in a crooked line, winding between the trees. It shouldn't have been possible. There were too many bones. Too many species. Rabbits, deer, squirrels, foxes, even a bear jaw split clean down the middle. Caleb muttered, "It's a trap. Somebody's messing with us." "Who?" Mason snorted. "We're in the middle of nowhere." But I felt it already, deep in my gut. This wasn't for us to find. It was for us to follow. We followed anyway. At first, we told ourselves we'd just see where it ended. Maybe at some poacher's camp or some weirdo's cabin. But the deeper we went, the less sense it made. The bones weren't just scattered in a line now. They were arranged with precision. Tiny bird skulls nested in the sockets of larger deer skulls. Ribs laid out in perfect arcs, vertebrae stacked like stone cairns. The trail pulsed with intention. "What kind of psycho does this?" Mason muttered, voice thinner than he wanted it to be. We should have turned back, but by then, the woods behind us looked wrong. Too dark, too tight. Like the trail was the only path left. Caleb stopped suddenly. "Look." Up ahead, a shape slumped against a tree. A man, or what was left of one. His skin hung loose, ribs stripped bare. His skull was cracked open, jaw sagging. His bones were threaded into the trail, as if his body had been pulled apart piece by piece and carefully arranged. The air stank of iron and rot. Mason gagged. "We're leaving." "Right now." But as we turned, something shifted. The bones behind us, the ones we'd already stepped past, weren't where they had been. They'd rearranged, closing the trail. "What the hell?" Caleb whispered. The rib cage we'd passed earlier now bent inward, blocking the path back. Vertebrae stacked higher, tightening. We were trapped, Mason cursed, gripping his rifle. "We shoot our way out if we have to." "Shoot what?" I snapped. The woods answered, a crack of bone, a rattle. The trail ahead shifted. Bones grinding, sliding, forming new patterns. And then the whispers began, not voices through the air. Voices through the marrow, low, hungry. "Walk." My skin crawled. "Did you hear that?" Caleb's face was pale. "It's in my head." Mason shook his rifle, panicked. Stop it. But the trail just lengthened. Bones rolling forward, pulling us deeper. And when we resisted, the bones twitched closer on their own, like the forest itself was dragging us. We stumbled forward, tripping over ribs and skulls. The trail wound into a clearing. At its center rose a mound. Not of earth, of bones, stacked stories high, fused together, swaying like it was breathing. Antlers jutted out at odd angles, skulls twisted into the surface, jaws working silently, and at the very top sat something half human, half wrong. It was draped in hide, ribs exposed like armor, skulls dangling from its shoulders. Its face was a mask of bone stretched too thin, sockets glowing faintly. It raised one hand, long fingers sharpened to points. The mound shivered. Bones around our feet snapped upright like snakes. One lashed Mason's leg, splintering flesh. He screamed, firing wildly. The shot blew apart a skull, but two more replaced it instantly. Caleb bolted. I tried to grab him, but the trail rose between us, a wall of ribs and jaws snapping shut. The mound groaned, and Mason's scream cut off as the bones dragged him down, pulling his body apart. His pieces slotted neatly into the trail, like he'd always belonged there. Caleb vanished into the trees. His cries swallowed, and me, I couldn't move. The bone figure tilted its head, empty sockets fixing on me. Its voice cracked through my skull. Every trail must grow. I woke at dawn, slumped against a tree. My rifle was gone. My pack was gone. The trail was gone. No bones. No clearing. No mound. Only silent woods. I stumbled back to the road, half dead with fear. When the rangers came, they found nothing. No Mason. No Caleb. But I know where they are. I see it every night when I close my eyes. The bone mound shifting, growing, whispering. And when I hike, no matter where, I always find it. A skull. A rib. A vertebra. Lined neatly on the ground, waiting for me to follow, because the bone trail never ends. It just waits to claim the next piece. The children's laughter came from the woods. It was nearly midnight, the village dark and silent, and yet the giggles carried clear through the trees. I leaned out of my window, heart thudding. No children should have been awake, let alone playing out there. The laughter grew louder. Then, one by one, it stopped. The last sound was a girl's voice, whispering, "We're empty." I'd taken the teaching job out of desperation. A one-room school in a village tucked so deep into the valley that maps had stopped marking it. It was supposed to be quiet, uneventful. Just a year of teaching before I moved on. The villagers welcomed me politely enough. But their smiles never reached their eyes, and they warned me more than once. Don't wander the woods after dark. I thought it was just rural superstition. Every isolated community has its stories, ghosts in wells, curses on crossroads. But then the children stopped coming to class. At first it was one or two missing. Then half the desks were empty. Parents gave me strange excuses. She's tired. He's visiting family. They'll be back soon. I didn't believe them. So when I heard laughter in the woods that night, I followed. The forest was ink black, branches clawing the moon. My lantern swayed in my hand, its glow pushing shadows back only a few feet. The laughter had gone silent, but I could still hear movement ahead. Leaves crunching. Feet. Hello? I called. It's late. You should be home. No answer. I pushed deeper, and then I saw them. Children, at least a dozen. Standing in a rough circle in a small clearing, they were perfectly still, heads tilted, faces blank. My stomach tightened. They weren't my students. I didn't recognize a single one, but they looked wrong. Their eyes were too wide, too hollow. Their mouths hung slightly open, like dolls left unfinished. One of them turned to me, and I swear I could see the trees through the black holes of his eyes. I stumbled back. What are you doing here? My voice cracked. The children spoke in unison. Voices overlapping like a swarm. We are the hollow ones. My lantern flickered. Another voice, not theirs, slithered from the shadows. They've always been here. I spun. Light shaking across the clearing. A man stood at the tree line, old, ragged, his clothes torn, skin pale. Don't look at them, he rasped. Don't answer them. Who are you? I demanded. A fool who once listened. The hollow ones began to move, their steps stiff, jerky. Closing in. They want you to see them, the man hissed. Once you do, you can't forget. They'll follow. They'll wait. They'll wear you hollow, too, I bolted. Branches whipped my face, roots clawed my boots. Behind me, the laughter started again, rising higher, sharper. When I looked back, I wished I hadn't. They weren't children anymore. Their bodies stretched unnaturally tall, limbs too thin, faces caving inward as if eaten from the inside. Holes yawned where eyes had been, black tunnels that seemed endless. They didn't run. They drifted. Closer. Closer. The old man appeared beside me, pulling me by the arm. The village lights. Don't stop! We burst from the tree line, lanterns glowing from windows ahead. The hollow ones halted at the edge of the woods. I collapsed, gasping, staring back. They didn't move. They only watched. One lifted a hand, crooked and bone-thin, and whispered, "You'll come back." The villagers didn't question me. They only shut their doors tighter. The old man sat with me until dawn. He told me his story in fragments. Once he'd been a villager, too. Once he'd followed the laughter. They take the lonely ones first, he muttered. The curious next. But they always get what they want. I asked what they were. He shook his head. Not ghosts. Not people. Just empty. Hollows wearing skin. The children never returned to my classroom. Their desks gathered dust. The parents stopped meeting my eyes. And every night, when the wind blows from the forest, I hear laughter under it. Sometimes I see faces at the tree line, and I know the hollow ones are waiting. Because once you've seen them, you belong to them. It's only a matter of time before I follow their trail back into the woods. And when I do, I'll come back, empty. The tree wasn't supposed to be there. Every other trunk in the forest was pine, oak, birch, green and brown, alive. But this one stood alone in the clearing, completely black, not charred, not rotten, just black. Its bark drank the light. And even in daylight, it cast no shadow. As we circled it, Mason whispered, "Don't touch it." But Caleb already had his hand out. We weren't explorers. Just 4 friends on a camping trip. The kind where you hike too far, drink too much, laugh too loud. Me, Caleb, Mason, and Dana. We'd gone deep into the state forest, ignoring the posted signs about unstable terrain. The further we walked, the quieter it got. Birds vanished. Bugs vanished. The wind itself seemed to die. That's when we found the clearing, and the tree. It rose at least 50 feet, its branches long and twisted, leaves darker than night. At first I thought it had been struck by lightning, charred through. But no, the bark wasn't burnt. It was smooth, glossy, like obsidian. Dana muttered, "It looks wrong." We circled it slowly. The grass around its roots was dead. No mushrooms, no moss. Just bare dirt. And though the sun was above us, the tree gave off no shadow. That's when Mason whispered, "Don't touch it." But Caleb already had his hand pressed to the trunk. He jerked back instantly, eyes wide. "Cold," he muttered. "Colder than ice." That night around the campfire, Caleb wouldn't stop staring at the tree. We'd pitched our tents near the clearing, though Dana begged us to move further away. "It's just a tree," Mason laughed. "Creepy, sure, but it's not going to kill us." But Caleb didn't laugh. He kept rubbing his palm, the one that touched the bark. By midnight, I woke to whispers, low, hissing, coming from the clearing. I crawled out of my tent. Caleb was standing at the tree, one hand against it, head bowed. "Caleb," I whispered, "what are you doing?" He turned slowly. His face was pale, eyes dark-ringed. "They're inside," he murmured. "Who?" "The ones who never left." The next morning, Dana was gone. Her tent was empty, sleeping bag still zipped. Her boots sat neatly by the flap. We searched the woods for hours, shouting her name. No answer. Finally, we returned to the clearing and saw something new. At the base of the black tree, just above the roots, the bark had cracked, and inside that crack, pressed deep, was something pale. A hand, Dana's hand. We lost control. Mason grabbed an axe and started hacking at the tree, screaming Dana's name. The blade rang against the bark like steel on stone. "Not a scratch, stop!" I shouted. "It's not working." But Mason didn't stop. He was crying, swinging wildly, until finally the axe snapped. The tree groaned, its branches swayed though no wind blew, and the crack widened, more pale shapes pushed through. A face, a shoulder, Dana's face, but twisted. Her eyes were hollow pits, her mouth frozen in a scream that made no sound. Her body was part of the tree now. Fused into it, Mason fell back, sobbing. Caleb just stood there, smiling faintly. "They're hollow now," he whispered. "It's what the tree does. It eats what's left inside." The bark split further. Dozens of faces stared out. Strangers, villagers, hunters, all trapped in eternal silence. Their mouths began to move. Whispers filled the clearing. "Join us." Branches whipped down like arms. One coiled around Mason, dragging him screaming into the trunk. The bark rippled, swallowed him whole. I ran. Caleb didn't follow. The last thing I saw was him pressing both hands to the tree, whispering back to the voices, eyes shining with something that wasn't his anymore. I made it out of the forest by dawn. Rangers didn't believe me. They said Dana and Mason must have gotten lost, that Caleb probably wandered off to find them. But I know the truth, because sometimes, when I sleep, I dream of the clearing, of the black tree, and in my dreams, I see their faces, Dana, Mason, Caleb, pressed against the bark, whispering through the cracks, begging me to come back, and one day, I know I will, because the tree never casts a shadow, and neither do I anymore. The lantern was dying. Its flame had burned for 3 nights straight, the only glow in the endless black of the forest. Now it sputtered. Shrinking low in the glass, I leaned closer, whispering to no one, "Please." Not yet, because I knew what waited in the dark, and it was listening. I had rented the cabin to escape, to write, to be alone. The listing had promised peace, a one-room shack in the middle of the woods, no neighbors for miles, no power lines, no distractions. They hadn't mentioned the silence, the kind of silence that feels heavy, alive, or the lantern. It was waiting on the table when I arrived, old brass, glass fogged with age. Beside it lay a note in neat, unfamiliar handwriting. "Keep it lit, never let it die. It's the last light." I laughed then, thinking it was some eccentric warning. But when the sun set and the forest sank into blackness so complete I couldn't see my hands, I understood. The lantern was the only light, and sometimes, out beyond its glow, I heard movement, branches cracking, leaves shivering, footsteps. By the second night, I was afraid to step outside. I sat at the table, lantern burning bright, listening. At first it was only rustles, faint knocks on the cabin wall, but then came the whispers, voices low, curling through the dark. "Blow it out. We're so close." I stuffed my ears, but the voices weren't in the air. They were inside my skull. Every time the lantern flickered, the whispers grew louder. By morning, my nerves were shot. I stumbled out for water, sunlight dazzling me. In daylight, the forest looked normal. Quiet but harmless. Still, I found myself checking the lantern every hour, making sure it hadn't moved. That's when I noticed something impossible. Its reservoir was empty. No oil. And yet it still burned. That night, the whispers came again. This time they spoke like children, laughing, pleading. "It's safe if you let it out. Come play in the dark." I nearly believed them, until I saw the hand, pressing against the window glass. It wasn't human. Too long, too thin. The fingers bent backward, tapping gently. The lantern flared, the hand vanished. I stayed awake until dawn. By now, I wasn't sure if I was protecting myself with the light, or if the light was protecting itself through me. On the third night, the flame began to die. I shook the lantern, begged, cursed. But the flame shrank lower, sputtering. The voices outside swelled, overlapping, frantic. Yes, now. We've waited so long. The walls of the cabin shuddered. Wood splintered as claws dragged across it. Something circled, fast, scraping, laughing. I slammed my hands on the table. "Stay lit, please." The flame guttered. Darkness spilled across the floor. Shapes moved in it. Tall, crooked, with jaws too wide. Eyes glowing faint. The lantern flickered once more, and then went out. Everything stopped. The cabin went still. I could hear my own breath. My heartbeat pounding. Then a single voice whispered from the dark, right beside my ear. "We are the last light." Hands clamped down on me, pulling me into the black. I don't know how long it's been since then. Sometimes I wake, thinking I'm back in the cabin, the lantern burning soft on the table. But when I reach for it, my hand passes through glass that isn't there. Other times, I hear new voices in the forest, travelers, hikers, writers like me, and I whisper to them, the way they whispered to me. Blow it out. Because the lantern always finds another keeper. It's not the last light of the forest. It's the last light before the dark takes you. And once it goes out, you belong to it forever.